You are with Cape Talk.
Views and News with Clarence Ford.
Yeah, so it is 9:34. We welcome Dr. Chris Smith. Good to have you back.
Oh, hi, Clarence. Good morning.
Yeah, I wanted to just start off with La Nina. There was a report in one of our local newspapers that La Nina will dominate our weather patterns over the next couple of months into early 2026. And for us, that means normal to above average rainfall. It also means flooding. It's actually been regular, but not a very significant La Nina. Can you tell us a little more about these things that affect the Pacific Ocean and how it comes to bear on our everyday lives in Southern Africa?
Yeah, well, the oceans cover 75% of the surface of the planet and contain enormous amounts of water, which has a very high specific heat capacity. So the oceans can carry massive amounts of energy. So when the air temperature goes up, that's transmitted into the water temperature goes up, but it takes ages for the water temperature to drop again. And water moves. So if you've got something with loads of energy that's also mobile, you have a conveyor system that can move energy around the planet. And because the warm water can warm air above the water, it's the process in reverse, you have a system that can take energy from one place where there's lots of heat, soak up lots of heat, move lots of heat, and then give up lots of heat. And when it gives up the heat into the overlying air, it will, of course, change the nature of that air's behaviour, because you'll evaporate water into the air as well, so you get warm air that's also saturated with water, and that in turn affects how the weather behaves, because if you've got loads of water in the air and that air's rising, then it will rise faster. The water condenses into rain, which also then makes the air rise a bit faster because it releases a bit more energy. That pulls in more cold air from further across the planet, which is turning, and you create a storm system. So these sorts of conveyors do a really important role redistributing energy around the planet, keeping climates in check and in balance around the planet. And if they become more pronounced, you get more pronounced weather. And because the Earth has, as a system, not changed very much over many, many years, thousands to millions of years, these systems have become established, and how they work has become established, and we can, to a certain extent, predict them. But once you start to rock the boat a bit by adding in man-made climate change or climate gas emissions, for example, then they become a bit more unpredictable, or they become a bit more exaggerated. And so although we have an insight into how these systems work, we begin to stress the system by changing the climate, and then they exaggerate their effects a bit more. But basically, in a nutshell, these are pools of warm water that move backwards and forwards across the Earth's major oceans, El Nino across the Pacific, La Nina across the Indian and Atlantic Oceans. They will have target effects on the areas that those oceans abut and that those currents rub up against, which is why they influence the continents in the Southern Hemisphere's weather.
Okay, so that does mean that the Orange River is going to be flowing again into the Atlantic Ocean from deep in the Gauteng province. Lots of interest in 3I Atlas. It's behind the sun, doing a little dance with Mars at the moment in time. Somebody asking for an update. Not a lot coming out of NASA, ESA, and out of the Chinese.
Yep. Well, it was like we said last time, that you wait forever for a bus to come along and then three come along all at once. Well, we've got three really interesting celestial objects to look at all at once. There are two comets from our own solar system, and you put me onto this and made me go and learn this about it for homework last week. But we've got Comet Lemon and Comet Swan, which are from our own solar system. Those are visible in the night sky about at the moment. You have to look low on the horizon. They're not particularly close to us, so they're quite dim. And with binoculars, you might see them. With the naked eye, probably not, but might be worth a try. But there's another object, which is called Atlas, spotted by the Atlas system. Atlas is a system that looks for asteroids and other things coming on Earth-approaching courses. It's a telescope. And this object does not appear to have originated from our own solar system. This is an interstellar interloper. So what's happened is that presumably in a star system far, far away, elsewhere in our galaxy, do you see what I did there? Something caused this big hunk of rock to be booted out of its own system, and it's been traversing over billions of years interstellar space. So from one star system to another. And it's now on a path through the centre of our system, and it's going to be a fair way from us. It's fair to say you probably are not going to be able to get worried about this hitting us, but this object has come quite close to the inner solar system, but it won't be here for long, because before long it will continue on its journey and leave our solar system, again entering interstellar space and heading off to another star system, perhaps for another few billion years' time. We know that because we can track the trajectory of these objects. You can use telescopes to look at where they are, and you look on successive days and dates, and you can see what their orbit must be or not. And those first two I mentioned, Swan and Lemon, they are clearly on a solar system orbit. It's a very deep eccentric orbit, so they have come from way out in our solar system where comets tend to hang out, the Kuiper Belt, and they're on one of these long elliptical orbits that will take hundreds of years to complete a lap of the solar system. But when you do the same thing for this object, Atlas, it doesn't seem to have an orbit at all. It's on a strange path that can only be explained by the fact that this must be an object coming from another system that's been guided in by the gravity of our solar system, been pulled across the system by that gravity, and will then carry on and leave again. And it's only the third such object that we've spotted. You'll see its name is 3/Atlas or 3I Atlas. This is because it's the third one. The first, I think, was Oumuamua, the object that was the cigar-shaped thing that everyone said was an alien spacecraft coming in about 2017, and we subsequently learned that Oumuamua wasn't an alien spacecraft. It was a lump of space rock. But it hasn't stopped other people speculating that perhaps Atlas is also an alien, and that it's coming for a look at our solar system on the way through going elsewhere.
I'm kind of hoping that it is that transformative moment for humankind, maybe one that we've been waiting for the past century at least. I'm chatting to consultant virologist at Addenbrooke's Hospital, Cambridge, Dr. Chris Smith, also known as the Naked Scientist. Pauloso's on the line. Go ahead with your question.
Thanks for taking my call, Clarence. Hi, Dr. Chris. In terms of keeping the moisture in the skin, right? As much as the advertisers claim this is a good idea. So is the body not able to keep its own moisture? Doesn't it have the mechanism to trap moisture in the skin without this product?
Hi, Pauloso. Well, what is being referred to here, when we talk about having dry skin, often people are talking about chapped lips or flaky, itchy skin, and you put onto the skin substances called emollients, which are basically greasy. Paraffin wax, for example, Vaseline is one example of an emollient, which nourishes the skin and rehydrates and keeps it wetter. Now, the skin is an excellent barrier to stopping things getting in and things getting out under normal circumstances. If the skin was leaky, then the huge bag of water that is a human, the average person is 60-70% water. If our skin was leaky, we wouldn't be. We would dehydrate to a husk in no time. Similarly, every time you went for a dip in the swimming pool, got in the shower, or went in the bath, you would inflate like a giant balloon because you're a big bag of salty water, and that salty water would pull water in and you would blow up like a balloon. That doesn't happen to any great extent. I mean, you get wrinkly fingers a bit, but that's not the same thing. So as a result of that, we regard the skin as an excellent barrier, but occasionally skin does become irritated. You can develop acute dermatitis or eczema, and the skin becomes broken down, itchy and flaky, and we tend to apply this phrase dry skin to the skin. And when we put emollients on, what you're doing is actually putting a barrier across the skin surface, stopping irritants and allergens from getting through the skin or into the upper layers of the skin, where they activate the immune system, which then causes things like dermatitis to intensify, making the skin more itchy, so you're more likely to scratch, making your problem more pronounced. Now, the other point that people make about having drier skin or nourishing your skin and using cosmetics and things to retain more moisture in the skin, as we age, our skin becomes less elastic. That's down to a loss of elastin fibres. It also becomes slightly thinner. We lose our collagen. So one way that you can plump up the skin is to make it retain a bit more water. And if you put some substances onto the skin which do increase the amount of water held in the superficial upper layers of skin, it will have the effect of plumping up the skin, tautening it and ironing out wrinkles a bit, which can help to defy the aging process up to a point, but you can never defy time completely. So that's what we mean when we talk about dry skin. It's not really dry, it's actually a useful analogy for explaining why skin looks the way it does under certain circumstances.
Okay, let's go to the WhatsApp line. We've got Emily on the line. Let's take a listen.
Good morning. This is a question for Dr. Chris. I was wondering if there is any condition where people can have an aversion to iron, to the iron mineral in their diet, whether aversion to iron is a known condition. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Emily. I've not heard of anyone being ironophobic or ferrophobic, but is that the word? I don't know. I just possibly created a neologism. I don't know. I've not heard of anyone doing that, but there are some interesting phenomena that happen when women become pregnant. And we all know that people talk about cravings, and women will say at certain stages, especially in early pregnancy, they feel suddenly cravings for certain foods that they're after, and sometimes in pregnancy they feel they don't want anything. So we know that certain states of the body and the sort of state of our health can affect how hungry or how perhaps tempted we are by certain foodstuffs. There are other diseases that stop us wanting to eat at all. When people develop cancer, they often lose their appetite, and that's why people say, I've lost a lot of weight. And this is probably part and parcel of the same mechanism, which is in the bottom of the brain, you have a structure called the hypothalamus, which is this connection or aggregation of lots of different nerve centres. And they do a range of different jobs in the body, but one of them, it seems, is counting calories and also counting nutrients. And when a woman is pregnant and that structure senses that there might be some nutrients missing in the body, sometimes it can make people want to eat certain things more to supplement a declining level of that particular micronutrient in the diet. I don't think that applies with iron so much, but who knows? And I tell you what, I'll take a look and see if there's any defined condition of people who can sense iron and actively avoid it, and I'll have that for homework next week, and I'll try not to avoid doing it.
Kenton reports that his wife suffers menopause with hot flushes multiple times in a day, and it comes with sweating and great discomfort. And his question is, what causes all of that?
I'm sorry to hear about the symptoms. This is very common, first and foremost, so you're not going mad. A lot of women say they feel absolutely frustrated and feel like they're going mad at that time when they're reaching that point in their life. You're not at all. You don't suffer in silence. Also talk about it and also ask some people for help, because there are things we can do. That's the first point. Now, why does this happen? This happens because in a woman, when she is born, she has all of the eggs in her ovaries that can produce her future children from day one. So unlike a man who's making sperm in his testicles all through his life, women are born with ovaries replete with eggs, which are all of the future babies and offspring. Those are made during embryonic development. Now, every month, a signal comes from the brain's pituitary gland, again controlled by the hypothalamus, the thing we were just talking about, and that signal, in the form of a hormone in the bloodstream, goes to the ovary and turns it on and tells it to start growing a clutch of those eggs. And those eggs begin to grow and flourish in the ovary, producing the hormone estrogen. This goes around the bloodstream, producing effects all around the body, including in the genital tract, in the uterus, which helps to prepare the uterus to receive an embryo. It also has effects, important effects, all over other tissues, including bones, to make bones strong, and the skin, etc. At about the middle of the cycle, day 14, another signal comes out of the brain and says, right, release an egg. Now, by that point, that clutch of eggs that have begun to mature in the ovary has largely become just a single egg, because it outgrows the others, they disappear, and one giant follicle is maturing, getting ready to pop and release an egg, and it's producing enormous amounts of estrogen. The estrogen, by that point, is feeding back to the brain, which is listening for it and says, I've got loads of estrogen being made now. I don't need so much of this signal that's turning the ovary on. And that's how you regulate the supply of the hormones that turn on the ovary, and also the supply of the estrogen coming from the ovary. Now, that works from the minute a girl starts having periods to the time that periods stop at the menopause, for most women on a 28-day cycle, month in, month out throughout their fertile life. Now, as you get towards this point of the menopause, which is when menstruation stops, menses, pause, stop, when that happens, what has occurred is that the ovary has run out of eggs that it can switch on in this way. Because every time you use some, it's a bit like dipping your hand into the basket, pulling some out, and then they're gone, they're used. So slowly you deplete your ovaries of these follicles that can be switched on, matured, used to produce estrogen, and then ovulated or involuted. And so the brain says, right, I need some estrogen, please, sends these signals from the pituitary gland through the bloodstream to the ovary. The ovary can't respond. It's a bit like a dead horse that you're flogging. You flog it even harder, and it doesn't do anything. The brain is listening for the estrogen signal to come back, and nothing's coming back. So it says, well, I have to shout a bit louder then. The ovary must be going deaf. So the brain produces even more of these stimulatory signals. One of them is called FSH. And again, the ovary doesn't respond. And this, we think, is part and parcel of some of those effects that you get, including the night sweats, flushing, other symptoms, including feeling a bit confused or tired. This is all menopause symptoms, and it's all because of these changes in hormones where you're producing a signal, not getting back the response you would expect to that signal, therefore you produce even more of the signal. What can we do about it? Well, some women do find it passes for them and it's tolerable and it's not a problem and it goes away. Other women find it really damages their ability to think clearly, to have self-confidence, and it can also have physical effects on the body. The loss of estrogen does begin to mean your skeleton thins, and that's why women are at higher risk of osteoporosis. So what some people elect to do now is that when they have these symptoms, via medical consultation, they're able to access HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and this is where estrogens and progesterones, but chiefly estrogens, are put back into the body, usually through skin patches, for example. And when those estrogens go into the body, they replace the estrogen that would come from the ovary, and in that way they satisfy the brain's demand to get some estrogen, and this turns off the supply of the signal from the pituitary, and because that signal goes away, the symptoms go away. So if this is really troublesome, it's worth talking to an obstetrician, gynecologist, or a general practitioner about whether HRT might be something for you, and you can have a chat to them about the possible benefits, the possible risks, and how long you might be able to use that for and when you need to do it.
Okay, we got two callers on the line. I think let's take both callers. We'll start off with Dave, and then we'll go to Aisha. If you'll put your question to the Naked Scientist and then listen on the radio, that will be appreciated. Dave, welcome.
Morning, and thank you. I just really wanted to ask the doctor what he knew about a suspected TGA incident I had when I was in Sicily, where I lost a kind of memory, well, not all of it, but, important detail for about 15 minutes, and it came back. And I was wondering if he could suggest any treatment, or I'm about to go and do some tests and stuff, but I was wondering if he had any insight into a TGA. If I may ask you.
What's a PGA?
Thank you, Dave.
Presumably not the professional golf. Well, is this like a mini stroke, Dave? Is that what you're referring to? Is it one of these transient ischemic attacks or something?
Something like that. They call it whatever, global amnesia or something. With the help of my daughter, that was Google, and the chatbot or whatever it is comes up with all these special answers. But I was wondering what your views on that, because apparently it can happen. It's quite kind of rare, but quite it has happened, and it happens maybe once in your life. And I was wondering if it had something to do with cholesterol or a minor incident in the neurology.
I misheard you. I thought you said PGA, like golf. You were saying TGA, which is transient global amnesia. Yeah, okay. This is an unusual, and some people say enigmatic condition, as in we have documented it. We know it happens to some people, but we don't know why it happens. What tends to happen, and perhaps you can corroborate this, Dave, is that people will be absolutely fine 1 minute, and then suddenly they can't remember who they are, what they're doing, why they're there, how they got there. And the key is the word transient, because not long after that, it goes away. And the person then says, well, I know what that was all about, but that was a bit scary. We don't know why this happens. There's a range of possibilities. One is that it's a bit like the other thing I wondered if you were asking about, which is transient ischemic attacks, TIAs. It's possible that if you have a temporary interruption of blood flow through certain parts of the brain, this could temporarily affect your conscious state on the activity of certain parts of the brain and the way they all talk to each other, which could disrupt our normal stream of consciousness. The other possibility is that there are certain forms of seizure or epilepsy which can originate in certain parts of the brain and then spread to some but not all structures in the brain. So a person doesn't lose consciousness, but they do lose the normal coherent joined up function of the brain. So as a result, things like sense of place and space and so on are temporarily disrupted. And as soon as the seizure activity stops, that goes away. But again, no one knows, because when it happens, you can't make it happen on demand. So you can study someone when it's happening. So it's much harder to understand exactly what the cause is. But those are two possibilities. And so I suspect when someone's checking out your overall health, they'll be looking to make sure that neither of those apply. And then if they do find anything, then they'll investigate accordingly.
Aisha, maybe you can squeeze in your question quickly.
Quickly. Okay. Hi, guys. Hope you're well. I have a constant iron taste in my mouth for many years, and medically, I've got nothing wrong with me. So I wanted to know, where would that come from?
Thank you for that, Aisha. That's all that we have time for. Maybe, Doctor, if you can give a quick response, if that is even possible.
I would say to Aisha, if you continuously are tasting an irony taste, one possibility is medication, but if you're not taking any medication, probably not. The other possibility is that if you have gum disease, because of inflammation in gums, then sometimes you can get low-level, low-grade bleeding from the gums, and because blood has got a lot of iron in it from the hemoglobin, you're tasting that. So that would be the other possibility. If you've got this and it's been something you've had for a long time, but it's not something you've always had, perhaps seeing a dentist and just checking there isn't something in the mouth, such as some gum disease, that could be easily fixed. That would be a good place to start.
And we're going to thank you once again, consultant virologist at Addenbrooke's Hospital, Cambridge, Dr. Chris Smith, also known as the Naked Scientist. An appointment for all of us at 9:30.
You are with Cape Talk.
Views and news with Clarence Ford.